Hi everyone, welcome to the panel discussion of life after graduate school. I am Nancy Lee, a PhD student in material science and engineering, and also the president of ASM Boston University chapter. So ASM BU chapter is run by graduate students. It's a student branch of International Materials Engineers Association, and started in last April. And our membership database increased by 50% in the past couple of months. And actually today is 2 days before our 1-year birthday. So we should totally have a birthday party after this event. Down in the Sage Jam, right? And Professor Basu wrote a song for our division. You should all go and check it out. Alright, so besides party, what else we do? We organize interdisciplinary events to create the interface between industry and academia and help students to network with the industry professionals. So tonight, I'm very honored to have two special guests. First guest is Nobel laureate Dr. Douglas Osheroff, sitting in the middle, and he's also professor at Stanford University. And our second speaker is Professor David Bishop, sitting over there on the far end over there, and he's the head of Materials Division. He's also the former VP of Bell Labs and the former OPC of Lucent Technology. And the third person is Professor Sumanja Basu, right here, and he's the Associate Division Head of Materials Engineering, and also the advisor of BU ASM. And tonight, Professor Basu has kindly consented to be the moderator of tonight's panel discussion. So the agenda of tonight is, first, we have the panel discussion led by Professor Basu, which lasts about 40 minutes. Then we have 5-minute break with more coffee and the cookies. Afterwards, we're going to have the open discussion, which is between the audience and the speakers. All right, sounds good? Right, so let me pass my microphone to Professor Basu.
Thank you. Thank you, Nancy. Can everybody hear me? Okay, so just wanted, before we get started on this, let me congratulate Nancy for increasing the membership by 50%, and if you are not members yet, she's going to come hit you on the head, so it's probably going to go up another 25% today. So let's start with this sort of session. What I'm going to do is I'm going to ask some questions about the personal experiences of these two gentlemen. And I know that you guys are chomping at the bits to ask more important questions like who's going to win the NCAA tournament. We'll hold off to that for the second half of the question. So I'm going to start with the sort of, I'm going to ask Dave the question that you have said, you've always said that Doug was a good friend. So I just want you to tell us, how did you meet him and how does this friendship grow over time?
I'm happy to. So Doug was a good friend. He was also a role model, and so to a very large extent, if there is an individual after whom I tried to model my scientific career, my approach to experimental physics, it was Doug. Let me describe a little bit how that happened. Just about 40 years ago or so, I showed up at Cornell graduate school, and for those of you who know me, won't be shocked, I thought relatively highly of my own abilities. I thought I was, God's gift to experimental science. I thought I was going to get to Cornell, and they were going to go, boy, you're an amazing, amazing student. And I get to Cornell, and they said, well, you're sort of okay. But the guy who just left, he was really something. And so it turned out that for Doug's thesis, he discovered superfluidity in helium-3, a discovery for which they gave him the Nobel Prize. And so that really was a tough act to follow. I mean, you can get a bunch of BizRev letters and, and a bunch of invited talks, but, making a Nobel Prize winning discovery, as a graduate student like I said, that's a tall set of shoes to fill. So anyway, when I was a graduate student at Cornell, Doug had already left, or basically just left, to go to Bell Laboratories. But he was really a legend in our group. And so, when we were graduate students, it was always, how would Doug have done it, or what did Doug do, or this is the way Doug does this, or thinks about this, or he told me this. And so it's like, having the tablets come down from the mountain. And so he was always a legendary figure among the graduate students there. And we all worked hard and got our thesis written and graduated. But one of the things when we came to think about a job was Doug was at Bell Laboratories. And so my view was, if Doug's at Bell Labs, I want to be at Bell Labs. That was, that's where he thought the place to go was, and that's where I think the place to go is. And so he recruited me. He came back and recruited me to Bell Laboratories, something for which I've always been very grateful. Doug, when he left Cornell, he went to Bell Laboratories. He was there something like, 15 years? And then did an amazing series of experiments elucidating the nature of the superfluid phase of helium-3, discovered weak localization, and went to Stanford, did a lot of interesting work in helium-3 there, also looked at did some really interesting physics in the dielectric materials at very low temperatures. But throughout it all, Doug has always been a friend, a role model, someone who really has an approach to experimental physics which I've often thought was really worth emulating. When he does an experiment, it's really almost like he plays a musical instrument. The idea is, it's not about just collecting the data. It's really trying to understand and think about what is the experiment trying to tell you. And so he would go into the room where the experiment was and start, looking at the experiment, taking some data, thinking about it. And it wasn't like, do this, write this down, got the data, go home. It was, do this, what do I think is going to happen? Go up, go down, go sideways. Oh, I thought it was going to go up, but went sideways. Okay, try this, try that. It was really kind of a level of interacting in a way that I think, like I said, most reminds me of the way people might play a piano or musical instrument. Really interacting with the apparatus, trying to figure out what can be done, and that's really been a very kind of a powerful concept to me in my career about trying to really just figure out how to really understand what the experiment is trying to tell you. Doug is easily the most gifted experimentalist I've ever met, and someone who's taught me a lot about experimental physics, and it's been a great honor and a pleasure to have him as a friend and a colleague, and someone to look up to and someone to try to emulate. I haven't quite made it as far as he has yet, but where there's life, there's hope. So.
All right. Thanks, Dave. I was reading somewhere that your experimental ability showed up right when you were in high school, and that included a couple of holes in the wall and some broken glass. Can you elaborate on that?
Well, I must say, I think I grew up in a household, there were 5 of us, and I was number 2. My older brother went into medicine, and I dare say he probably did so because he realized there would be a need for medical people knowing me. It was kind of an exciting childhood. I think I did, how do I say this? I say this when I go to China, I say, I discovered gunpowder when I was, I think, 11 years old. And then the Chinese all say, no, we discovered gunpowder. I said, you guys don't understand. You guys invented gunpowder. I just discovered it. And it was, I grew up in a logging town in the Pacific Northwest, and almost anything went. My youngest brother managed to acquire electronic blasting caps, and so every New Year's Eve at exactly midnight, I would kind of light off something. But because I used a fuse, it was never exactly at midnight. So my youngest brother said, with these electronic blasting caps, we could get this bugger to go off exactly at midnight. So I had this mixture of smokeless and black powder together in a little propane tank, And exactly at midnight, we pushed the button, and this thing was supposed to create a huge fireball, but in fact it said it detonated. And really lucky that none of the windows in the house were blown out. But it made a hole, I think it was about 5 feet wide and about 3 feet deep in my father's rock garden. So luckily there was hard snow on the ground, and the next day my youngest brother and I scraped up all the dirt and put it back in the hole. But Dave, you became a member of the recruiting team, right? Originally it was Venki Naranamurti, although I don't remember who recruited me.
Probably Venki.
It probably was Venki, is my guess. Remember your friends. Anyway, and so we would go up to Ithaca, New York, and to see what gems we could recruit to Bell Laboratories, and it was really fun doing recruiting with Venki and Dave. I don't know where all those people are now. Maybe you do, Dave, but I don't. Most of them, I'm afraid, have gone off to universities now, as I have, and as you have. But it was, Bell Laboratories was a fantastic place. Dave was right across the hall from me, and so Dave is one of these people that likes to spin stories on the fly. So you go out in the hall and you just sort of get stuck listening to these stories. But it was a really fun time, and back those days, you could use as much helium as you wanted. There seemed to be an endless supply, but don't worry, that won't happen for you.
So you, as a result, you will have to spend less time with the family and kids. If you have to, are you looking back? Do you agree? If you have the chance to do it again, would you choose do it the same style, or do you have anything you want to say to us who are just starting their career? Yeah.
Well, okay. First, I'm probably not. I may be a bit atypical because my wife and I have never had any children. But it's sort of interesting. My father was a medical doctor, and I'm a very busy person. But he really spent quality time with I think all of his children, particularly me though. I mean, we would go down to the basement and he would give me a spool of wire and a nail. He said, all right, wind a coil around this nail, and then we attached it to one of these big lantern batteries, which you don't see anymore. And suddenly the nail became a magnet, would pick up other nails. This was incredibly stimulating and inspirational for a young kid. And I started doing my own experiments. A lot of them were with gunpowder and things like that. But I think I grew up in a very permissive environment. I would do things that were, well, I would say, shall we say, not life-threatening, but close. And my parents, I think they worried about safety more than I did, but in fact, everything worked out okay. I think that because of that upbringing that I had, where I had a close association with trying to figure out how things worked and stuff like that, I was able to go into science, and I've done obviously reasonably well at it. And unfortunately, my father died before he could see me get the Nobel Prize, which is one thing that really hurt me, I think. But it's nice thinking that he was looking down and saw that, because I think in a real sense I'm a product of my father, and I think when all of you have children, you can try to do the same thing.
Yeah, I have a son, and I'm a firm believer in family first. Your kids don't ask to get born. It's your idea, not their idea. They get born. So when they show up, that's the responsibility you have. It's the most amazing, wonderful, interesting thing. You don't really understand. It's like, you've taken you built a car from scratch. You don't understand cars until you build a human being from scratch. You don't understand human beings. And so when you have a child and you raise it, you go through all that, all of a sudden you just have a much better notion about what people are about. I think you don't have a career on the backs of your family. I think so when you have little kids, you go home at a normal time, you have dinner with them, you stay there and do their homework, and you give them a kiss, and you tuck them in, and you gotta work, you go back to work and do your thing, and when they're sleeping, you can work. It's a little easier these days because of the IT stuff, so an awful lot of what you need to do, I mean, there was, it sounds stupid, we didn't have dial-up computers, you couldn't actually read the data from home, the way you can. So it's a little easier to set things up in a way that you could go and work remotely or write your papers at home remotely. All you need is just a computer. But I really, your kids will grow up so fast. I know when you have children, everyone tells you that. That's what the old guys tell you. But then someday you'll be dropping them off at college, and something crazy. Didn't you bring them home from the hospital? Why are we dropping them off at college? Where the 18 years go by, and just enjoy it. It's wonderful. But you have to get a little less sleep or work when they're sleeping and do it. But don't have a scientific career on the back of your family. That'll be a pain that will haunt you. In my opinion, it'll never go away. So I think it's possible to enjoy the dickens out of both. You may not get quite as much sleep as you would under normal circumstances, but you're going to be dead for a long time. You can sleep there.
So I'm going to wrap up by telling Doug that if I were a skeptic, I would think maybe the reason your dad gave you gunpowder and nails is because we needed practice, but I'm not a skeptic. On that note, I really would urge you to thank our speakers for giving the time and answering all your questions. Thank you for coming and being engaged in the process.
And some more. And I believe this discussion won't end if I give you 2 more hours. Such a wonderful discussion. Thank you all the speakers. And personally, I learned that. So first, if you want to be successful, especially succeed in the academia world, you got to use Chinese time so that 4 a.m. in the morning is 4 p.m. in the afternoon. So you can actually work very well and get very productive. Second, you better network with your classmates and everybody and all the connection you have. Actually, you guys noticed that Professor David Bishop got his offer from Bell Labs because he got referral from his friend, Nobel laureate, right? So actually, we should use this great broad connections in the school and get you and have the food into the next stage, next job. So right now, I think it's a great opportunity to network with those big potatoes tonight after this discussion. And third, you really need to invite Nobel laureate to speak in Egypt and give a public speech to educate all the nations. All right, so to offer our thanks, show our thanks to our speakers. So we have some people. Thank you.
Thank you, then.
We'll see you then. Thank you very much. So finally, I still have several people to thank. So 1 more minute. Especially Ruth and Elizabeth. Thank you for being so supportive to putting this event together. And our whole team, thank you for working so hard, especially JP and Jackson. Thank you very much. And as you know, we are growing, and most of our officers are going to graduate soon. So we are looking for new leaders. If you are interested in